Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Chris. These are the Altra Lone Peak 4s. Now, Altra has been making the Lone Peak for a number of years now, and this is the Lone Peak 4. The current model is the Lone Peak 4.5. Altra moves through their lineup fast enough that in order to do a long-term review, you're pretty much guaranteed to be reviewing a shoe that's already out of date. However, these are still available online at various outlets and in various sizes, so I wanted to give my long-term impressions. I have owned these shoes for a full year, actually just over a little bit of a year now, and they've held up rather well. Before this, I had the Ultra Superiors, and I ran those for 2 years, and at about this point, they had already developed some holes, and by the time I got rid of them, I actually had to throw them away because the uppers had almost completely separated from the soles. I definitely got as much use out of them as I wanted or expected for the money, and the Lone Peaks I feel like are doing even better, quite a bit better, I would say. So after a year of use, I would say I do quite a bit of hiking, but mostly walking around, some bike riding, and just pretty much constant use all the time. And so I don't do a lot of running anymore, but these do see some trail time. And so mostly this is going to be a durability test from a day-to-day perspective. So as you can see, they are fairly dirty, as you expect. They've got quite a bit of wax on them from waxing snowboards at the shop where I work, and so they've generally just kind of been abused. You can see that there's no holes at this point in the upper of the shoe, which is a good sign. That was a big problem I had with the Superiors over time. We do see a bit of tearing here on the back of the heel, and we see that these loops here have slid around a little bit, but they're actually not detached. They're working just fine. On the sole, we see that there is a decent amount of wear, but tread still remains. There's still pretty good traction at this point, so these shoes are still performing decently. We do have a little bit of a missing tread here in this section, and the other shoe looks pretty much the same. Basically the amount of wear you would expect over a full year of use. Padding is pretty minimal on this version of the Lone Peak. So prior versions of the Lone Peak were extremely padded. They were a little bit bulkier, and people really liked that. When version 4 of the Lone Peak came out, there was a bit of trepidation and a bit of disappointment on people that were really big fans of this particular model. Coming from the Superior, I wanted a little bit more sole, but I didn't really want the really beefy, extra paddedness of the prior Lone Peak. So when they introduced this more minimal, cut down version of the Lone Peak, I was really, really excited. So same kind of stack on the Lone Peak as you would have had before, but the upper is quite minimal. There's very, very little padding. It's basically just this breathable material, and there is this midfoot wrap that gives you some nice support and control over the shoe, but otherwise the shoe is neutral. Of course, with all Ultras, it's a zero drop shoe and a very wide toe box. So this is the big selling point of Ultra Lone Peaks in general, or Ultras in general, is that the toe box is foot shaped, so it's very, very wide. It tapers toward the heel. This is their really big design selling point with their entire line of shoes. Now, in general, Ultras have been known to be pretty durable, but they've also known to be kind of all over the place in terms of quality control. So some of them are really, really good. Some of them are very, very poor. Some are wider than others in the same size. Some of the sizes don't match up. They've had kind of this issue with manufacturing over the years. They're still a very young company, and I hope they get it down. But this particular version, I would say, is a winner. The biggest issue I have with these is that the laces that come with them after a year are actually still in pretty good shape. The problem is they won't stay tied for anything. No matter how you tie these shoes, those laces want to come loose. So that has been the biggest gripe. That's definitely something I could swap out. And otherwise, they've been just fine. If you're in a colder climate, these shoes are not waterproof at all. They're not very warm. They're extremely breathable. So in a hot climate, these are great. But in a cold climate, not so much. Now, the upside is that because they are so wide, I can actually double up on socks in the colder months. And it feels great in these shoes. There's plenty of room left over. In terms of the overall comfort, again, that's a very personal thing. But for me, the overall comfort of the shoe is extremely good. So These particular shoes, I would say, are kind of medium cushion, maybe a little bit on light cushion. They're definitely medium on protection. So I've never had any sort of issue of, being hurt by the rocks underneath. Definitely had that issue with, shoes like the New Balance Minimus years ago, and just thinner shoes like that. These don't have that problem. They're plenty thick. They're fairly flexible, but they're stiff enough that I can actually ride my bike in these and not get a bunch of foot pain out of them. So for maybe bicycle touring, if you want to wear a trail runner rather than an actual mountain bike shoe, these could be good if you're not, super worried about grip on the pedals, because of course the tread is going to interfere with that a little bit, but not too bad. Very usable if you're riding, at kind of a steady pace and you're not really hammering on the trails. So in terms of overall, comfort, I would say it's very good for me. But again, I don't prefer the super, super high cushioned, soft, gushy soles. I prefer something that's fairly firm, and that's definitely what I get out of these. So your mileage may vary as far as that goes, but they've been very good for me. In terms of wrap on the midfoot, that's been excellent. My feet do not move around in these, but I have so much room up front for my midfoot to kind of splay out, and there's never any pressure in the front end of the shoe. So overall comfort is very good. Durability is, I would say, above average. Give it another year and we'll see how these go. I should be replacing these before the winter time. I'll be going into something a little bit more water resistant, but otherwise for a summer shoe, these have done very, very well.